Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1989. I was 45 years old and I was the Senior Education Development Executive at Apple Computer, and I spent 30 years with Apple. On January 1st, the Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement comes into effect. This eliminated most trade barriers between Canada and the United States and eliminated tariffs. On January 4th, two Libyan MiG-23 floggers are engaged and shot down by two United States Navy F-14 Tomcats. This is the flogger. This is the Tomcat. On January 13th, Bernard Goetz is sentenced to 1 year in prison and fined $5,000 for shooting four young men on the New York subway back in 1984. This was a big story when it came out. On January 16th, a Miami police officer shoots and kills a speeding black motorcyclist in Miami, starting 3 days of riots. On January 17th, Patrick Edward Purdy kills 5 children and wounds 30, and then shoots himself in Stockton, California. On January 20th, George H.W. Bush is sworn in as the 41st President of the United States. On January 24th, serial killer Ted Bundy is executed in Florida's electric chair. He murdered dozens of young girls and women. On February 14th, the first of 24 Global Positioning System satellites is placed into orbit. On February 26th, the TV show 60 Minutes airs a report claiming that apples sprayed with alar may cause cancer in children, leading many schools to remove apples from their cafeterias. On March 4th, Time Incorporated and Warner Communications announced plans for a merger forming Time Warner. And look at all the things they own. Time Magazine, Fortune Magazine, Mad Magazine, People Magazine, Money Magazine, HBO, CNN, Turner Classic Movies, Warner Brothers. On March 9th, by a vote of 53 to 47, the Senate votes to reject the nomination of Senator John Tower as United States Secretary of Defense. President Bush subsequently nominated Dick Cheney the next day, and Cheney was confirmed on March 17th. March 13th, the Food and Drug Administration bans the import of grapes from Chile after traces of cyanide are found in 2 grapes. March 22nd, Congress passes a bill to protect the job whistleblowers who expose government waste or fraud. March 24th, in Alaska's Prince William Sound, the tanker Exxon Valdez spills 240,000 barrels of oil after running aground. A huge story that went on for months and months, and a huge oil cleanup. On April 9th, more than 300,000 demonstrators march in Washington, D.C. in support of legal abortion in the United States. On April 17th, the House Committee on Standards of Official Conduct charges House Speaker Jim Wright with improperly evading limits on outside income and accepting improper gifts. The Speaker of the House. On April 19th, a gun turret explodes on the U.S. battleship Iowa, killing 47 crew members. On May 1st, Disney MGM Studios at Walt Disney World opens to the public for the first time. May 26th, the United States House of Representatives Majority Whip Tony Colijo resigns from the United States House of Representatives, saying he wants to, quote, spare his family from an investigation into his finances. The Majority Whip, that's an important position. On June 3rd, in Beijing, China, the Tiananmen Square protest. Chinese students march for more independence. And I'm going to show you what is one of the most famous picture taken of the Tiananmen Square protest. Actually, it was a video. This young Chinese guy stands in front of these tanks, and when the tanks turned and tried to go around him, he kept moving. So this young man blocked these Chinese tanks. This went worldwide. I mean, everybody had seen this video or at least seen these pictures. One of the most famous pictures in the world at the time. On June 12th, the Cochrane Gallery of Art cancels Robert Mapplethorpe's photography exhibition, which was called Robert Mapplethorpe, The Perfect Moment, due to its sexually explicit content. It was just a little too much. In June of 21, in Texas versus Johnson, the United States Supreme Court rules that burning the flag of the United States is protected speech under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. So you cannot be prosecuted or arrested if you burn an American flag. Perfectly legal. June 26th, in Penray versus Lenaw, the Supreme Court rules that states can execute murderers as young as 16 or execute murderers who are mentally challenged. On July 5th, the TV show Seinfeld premieres for the first time. On July 5th, Oliver North is fined $150,000 and given 2-year suspended sentence and 3 years probation, and ordered to perform 1,200 hours of community service for his crimes in the Iran-Contra affair. July 17th, the maiden flight of the B-2 stealth bomber. On July 26th, a federal grand jury indicts Cornell University student Robert Tappan Morris, Jr. for releasing a computer virus, making him the first person to be prosecuted under the 1986 Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. On September 2nd through the 3rd, Black fraternity members attending the Greek Fest Fraternity Festival in Virginia Beach, Virginia, spend 2 days rioting and looting. On September 5th, U.S. President George Bush holds up a bag of cocaine purchased across the street at Lafayette Park, right in front of the White House, and he proposes to spend $7.9 billion in the war on drugs. And this was his first televised speech to the nation as president. On September 14th, factory worker Joseph Westbecker kills 8 and injures 12 before committing suicide inside a factory in Louisville, Kentucky. On September 26th, former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos dies in an inter-organ failure at a hospital in Honolulu, Hawaii. September 29th, in the biggest narcotic seizure on record, drug agents confiscate 21.4 tons of cocaine and more than $12 million in cash from a Los Angeles warehouse. On October 15th, Wayne Gretzky becomes the leading scorer in the history of the National Hockey League, and his record still stands today. On October 17th, the 6.9 earthquake shakes the San Francisco Bay Area. 63 people are killed, and damages amounted to $6 billion. On October 23rd, the Phillips Chemical Complex disaster in Pasadena, Texas, kills 23 and injures 314. This plant made polyethylene, and some of the gases from that process escaped and exploded. Ironically, my dad worked in a chemical plant in my hometown when I was a high school boy, and he worked in the polyethylene division. On November 3rd, the Senate convicts Judge Walter Nixon of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi. He was convicted of lying under oath to a federal grand jury, and they removed him from office. On November 9th, the Berlin Wall is torn down. On November 16th, 6 Jesuit priests and their housekeeper and her teenage daughter are murdered by U.S.-trained Salvadorian soldiers. On November 17th, Walt Disney Features animation The Little Mermaid is released to critical acclaim. On December 3rd, Cold War. In a meeting off the coast of Malta, President George Bush and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev released statements indicating that the Cold War between their nations may be coming to an end. On December 12th, hotel magnate Leona Helmsley is sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined $7.2 million for tax evasion. It's a big story. She was in the news all the time for this. On December 17th, the television show The Simpsons premiered on the Fox television network. On December 20th, Operation Just Cause is launched in an attempt to overthrow Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega. So we sent troops down there to take over Panama and throw him out. Who was born in 1989? I looked at dozens and dozens of people's names. These are the only three that I thought most people would recognize. Number one, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's in the news all the time now, a representative from New York. Number two, this football player, Travis Kelce. He plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he is famous and well known because of his fiancee, who was also born that year, Taylor Swift, born in 1989. What was introduced in 1989? The Casio F-91W digital watch. This is one of the first digital watches to come onto the market. The Nintendo Game Boy came out that year. Honey Bunches of Oats cereal was released in 1989. The Sega Genesis game computer was released that year. The Lexus car came out in 1989. Apple's Macintosh Portable. Now, remember, I worked for Apple. And here's the story on this. In today's dollars, this laptop would cost you $18,582. So it was very, very expensive. It was actually over $8,000 back then. So it was expensive and it was heavy. This thing weighed 16.4 pounds. That is the weight of the largest bowling ball you will find in bowling alleys. Personal story. I was on a business trip with my Macintosh Portable, and I got on the Ozark Airlines plane, and I had this in a bag underneath my seat. So after the plane took off and got cruising altitude, I reached under my seat and I drug out my Macintosh Portable. I pulled down the tray in front of me and I set my Macintosh on the tray, and it broke the tray and my Macintosh Portable fell into my lap, much to the amusement of the two passengers sitting next to me. Very embarrassing. We secretly called it the Macintosh Luggable. Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web in 1989 while working at the CERN laboratory in Switzerland. And he did it because he was very frustrated that it was difficult for his fellow scientists to communicate with each other. So he designed the web so that they could all share information back and forth easily. And the rest is history. So what were the top most popular TV shows back in 1989? You oldsters will remember these. Number one, The Cosby Show. Number two, Roseanne. Number three, Cheers, one of my all-time favorites. Number four, A Different World. And coming in at number five, America's Funniest Home Videos. What were the top songs in 1989? Number one, Look Away by Chicago. Number two, My Prerogative by Bobby Brown. Number three, Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison. Number 4, Straight Up by Paula Abdul. And number 5, Miss You Much by Janet Jackson. Who were the top singers in 1989? Or at least singers or musical groups. Number 1, New Kids on the Block. Number 2, Madonna. Number 3, Paula Abdul. Number 4, Roxette. And number 5, Fine Young Cannibals. The average annual salary in 1989 was $20,099. Let me convert that into today's dollars due to inflation. In today's dollars, that would have been $51,164. How does that actually stack up to the real average salary today? Well, here it is. In America, the actual average annual salary is $66,000 today. So that wouldn't have been a very good salary. A new car in 1989 cost $12,000. Let me convert that into our dollars today. That would have been a $30,547 car. What is the actual average price of a car today? I looked it up this morning. It is $50,000. So that would have been a really good price. In 1989, a new home cost $148,800. Converting that into our dollars today, that house would cost you $378,786. What is the actual average price of a new home in America? The actual price is $534,000 today. So that would have been a very good price for a new home. In 1989, a gallon of gas cost $1.06. Sounds cheap. Let's convert it into our dollars. That would cost you $2.70. I filled up at Costco yesterday morning and I paid $2.63 here in Indiana. Who won the Academy Awards back in 1989, the big three? The Academy Award for Best Actor? This guy, Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. And what a performance that was. The Academy Award for Best Actress went to this lady, Jodie Foster, in the movie The Accused. And what won the Academy Award for Best Picture? Rain Man. So thanks for watching, and I hope you had some fun.